All right, guys, this is exactly 7 o'clock India time. Time for us to get started. And well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning. I see people from different time zones, and I'm basing that basically from the names that I saw on the list. So, guys, welcome. And we are actually all the way into the third episode of Webinar Weekday. This is not the third webisode. This is not the first three episodes of Webinar Weekday. Actually, an entire cycle of 25 Webinar Weekdays have already happened, and we reset and we restarted all over again with episode 1. So it's the second cycle, third episode. All right, time for us to get started. 20 PMP questions, and I'm going to guide you through each one of them. So this is the reason why it's called 20 guided PMP questions, not specific to any knowledge area. I'm actually, I've just picked it up from my PMP exam simulator, and it's from all over. All right, time for us to get started. Now, here's what I'm going to do. We would not have a lot of time for all of us to be sent across, things like a poll or something where you can actually type the answers. But you see, you guys already have something known as the Q&A. So for those who can actually answer very fast, just type A, B, C, or D, because each of the questions would have just 4 options. You have to choose just one. So look at the question. The thing is, you should try to answer it as soon as possible. Don't worry if you go wrong. Don't worry, you're in a safe zone. It's better that you go wrong in front of me rather than behind me. So go ahead and answer the question on Q&A. I'm sure I'll not be able to wait for all the persons because the list has grown quite a bit. So I'll not be able to wait for all of us to answer, A, B, C, or D. I'm just going to look at 4, 5, or 6, the first people who kind of type in, and I'm going to explain the answers based on what you guys type in. All right. So time for us to get started, guys. And remember, you have the Q&A at the top panel. Just go up there. You will find Q&A. All right. Okay. It's time for us to get started. So I do see quite a few new names. So I'm going to introduce myself. I'm an old guy, born in the mid-60s. As of now, I have nearly 28 years of experience in strategy, program, and project management across all major domains. Project management, strategy, anything project is our profession as well as our passion. And that's why we are in this profession. I've been running a registered education provider, in fact, a global registered education provider since to the year 2007. I'm consulting in 16 countries across 3 continents. And I've authored 3 books on PMP available at Amazon. You can't find them anywhere. You can only find it on Amazon. Founder of the very first audio platform dedicated to project management. It is called PM Dhwani. This is the very first and till now only one of its kind. I'm actually harnessing the power of audios, and it is getting quite popular with people, as the days go by. And I've personally certified over 22,500 professionals since 2007. I'm talking about PMP certified. And well, for fun, I do a lot of nature photography. In fact, mostly wildlife photography. I drink a lot of beer. I write on beer. And I travel for beer. I am an avid traveler. I visited nearly 72 countries. And I do a lot of wood carving. And I'm now an author, not just a management author. I'm writing books on my travelogues and a couple of fiction books, right? So I'm getting motivated by a lot of people who came back that, man, you can write. So go ahead and write more. Well, I've taken it literally. And well, that's about me. Time for us to get started. What is the purpose of this webinar? Well, you see, there are too many suspicious sources of PMP practice questions. I am a member of a lot of PMP groups and forums on social media, quite a bit actually. And I find people posting all kinds of ugly, ridiculous kind of questions. I mean, forget about the answer. The question itself is incorrect. So I do see, and they seem to be copying that question and pasting it there. They've taken it from some kind of a simulator from somewhere. And that's what actually worries me. So too many suspicious sources of PMP practice questions. Even if the questions are good, the explanations are missing or incorrect. I mean, that's another thing that I've been noticing. People are actually searching the internet for questions. So I just thought, you know what? I'm going to use PMP Clinic as well as PMP Webinar, this free webinars, and through the series of these webinars, I'm going to bring out some of the best questions and just put it to you for free. So at least you know where to get the authentic material. Guidance to show how to answer the questions. So that's what I'm going to be doing, and help you practice some PMP questions, ensuring that you get some quality and curated questions for practice and explanations. All right, that's the main purpose of this webinar. All right, so the scope of this webinar is your learning journey, and I'm going to help you with questions, right? Time for us to get started, guys. And the moment I show you the question, guys, try to answer it as soon as you can. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the Q&A and keep it right in front of me. So I hope you guys have found where the Q&A is. And all you have to do, you don't have to write question number 1, the answer is so. No, don't waste so much time. Just write A, B, C, or D, because as it is going to only concentrate on the first 4 or 5 or 6 questions, people who actually write the answer. And I'm going to base my explanation on that. All right. Having said that, time for us to get started. Question number 1, it's right there in front of you. If you want, if some of you guys are, attending the Zoom on a small screen, like something like a cell phone, I can read it for you. All right, somebody really went fast. All right, not bad. So I got an answer already. Not bad. Fantastic. So this is a sitter question, right? So not bad. So in your project, you create a document to record the code of account identifier, description of work, responsible organization, and a list of scheduled milestones. This document can be referred to as WBS Dictionary. So all of you got it absolutely right. And just an explanation for the people who actually did not answer. And that is, well, WBS Dictionary contains important information about work packages, which may not be easily understandable just by reading the name of the work package, right? So for example, when I worked for Delhi Metro project, the WBS itself had 52,000 work packages. Many work packages would sound similar, and it was so difficult to understand, okay, this work package belongs to which particular vendor, and so and so. And therefore, we had to traverse using WBS Dictionary. All right, not bad, guys. Well done. And yeah, it contains a lot of information, and these are some of the examples, like description of work, the vendor it goes to, responsible organization, list of scheduled milestones. Wow. So it basically explains your WBS properly. All right, question number 2, guys, you are creating the activity list. Which technique is recommended for subdividing the project into smaller components called activities? A, decomposition, B, rolling wave planning, C, expert judgment, and D, deconstruction. All right, so a lot of people answered. A couple of us got it wrong. So no problem. That's the reason I want you to answer, because nobody else can see your answers. I can see everybody's answer. So be fearless. And even if it's wrong, it's okay. Don't worry about it. So a couple of us got it wrong. Don't worry. I'll explain how this works. Now, some of us thought that it is, okay, another one. So some of us thought that it's rolling wave planning. It is not. I'm going to explain rolling wave planning because that's what I'm here for. But right now, the correct answer is decomposition. See, what is decomposition? Decomposition is breaking down something. Now, here's the funny part. Not the funny part, in fact, the most interesting part that you should know, like how you should answer questions, is, well, if you look at decomposition, it means you're breaking down something into something. And out of all the 49 processes, there are only 2 processes where decomposition is a tool and technique. One is this create WBS, and the other one is called define activities. But rolling wave plan is basically something else. You see, very simplistically, if I oversimplify, today's agile, what you call as today's agile, is something that we used to call as rolling wave planning. Now, why would we call it rolling wave planning? And this is for those 5 or 6 guys who got it wrong. And that is, rolling wave planning is basically when you don't know the scope or the changes are there, and you actually don't break down the entire WBS in one shot, or try to find all possible activities of the entire project. You just break down one portion of WBS, which you kind of understand, and you scope it there, and you try to, try to plan for it, schedule it, execute it. And as you go through it, you tend to understand the other parts of the project better, right? So you actually go in an increment cycle of waves, right? Doing it again and again. And therefore you have that rolling wave. It's a very picturesque way of something which we very easily call it as agile. So I hope you understand that why rolling wave planning is one of the tool and techniques of defined activities, no doubt about it. But that is not what we're asking here. We're simply asking, hey, like we are breaking down something into activities. So which tool and technique are we using? Guess what? We are using decomposition, right? So sometimes it's much more simpler than you can think. All right, not a problem. All right, let's continue. All right, question number 3. Now the question number 3, I'm just reading for those people who are on small screen. You are in the process of creating a risk management plan for your project. The plan will describe how risk management will be structured and performed on the project. Your risk management plan may include, and then these are the options. A, avoided, transferred, mitigated, and accepted risk. B, risk audits, reserve analysis, and technical performance measurements. C, risk audits, triggers, and inputs to other processes. And D, budgeting, timing, and risk categories. So let me have a look. All right, so I had a question talking about difference between rolling wave planning and progressive elaboration. So Rujita, I'll answer this question. I will not leave without answering this question, but if you don't mind, I'll do it towards the end of the session. So please remember, if I try to get away after the end, just remind me, right? Just make sure that I don't run away without answering this question. This is actually a brilliant question, right? I want to answer this. All right, so make sure that I don't run away and I answer your question. All right, so a lot of people have come out with different versions of the answer somebody has. In fact, all the alphabets are here. We've got A, B. Oh, no, there's no C. All right, so we've got A, B, and D, like almost everything. No C here. Okay, so which is good. That C is definitely does not make any sense. Now, this question is not as straightforward as you might have imagined, right? So I'm going to surprise a lot of you. This question's right answer is budgeting, timing, and risk categories. And actually, if you look at the question, if you read the question carefully, you would understand that, the other options just don't fit in. Let me explain. I mean, I'm going to switch on a pointer option called laser pointer so that you can follow the words, right? And I'm pointing it onto the screen. You are in the process of creating a risk management plan. Now you're creating a risk management plan for your project, right? So you are not in an area where you're not in one of those processes where you are trying to identify the risk, or you're trying to prioritize the risk, or you're trying to make a risk response. You're not doing any of that. So this A and C, right, is completely gone, right? Risk audits, in fact, happens at control risk, but it's told you on the question itself that you are in the process of creating the risk management plan. You're just creating the subsidiary plan. And in a risk management plan, you don't identify risk. You simply say, how am I going to do this? How much money would have been set aside for it? How many times are we going to review it? What is the overall time within which we need to do all of that? So basically, if you look at it, risk management plan is not identification or prioritization or quantification or for that matter, creating a response or anything. It is just a plan. And therefore, the best answer among the option provided is budgeting, timing, and risk categories. Remember, RBS, risk breakdown structure, is an output of a process called plan risk management. Right? So keep those things in mind. It was not as straightforward, all right? But as I said, it's better that you go wrong in front of me than behind me. So now I think you're beginning to appreciate that when you go through questions, this is how you need to understand questions. So it's not about the number of questions that you've answered. It depends upon the quality and the way you've been guided. That's more important. So be careful. Quantity can never outdo quality. The reason I'm saying that is because I see people going crazy. I'm going to answer 3,000 questions. I'm going to answer 1,200 questions. it doesn't matter, right? If you've got the wrong questions, you've got bad quality, you've not got proper guidance, you had it. All right. So that's the whole purpose. All right. Not bad. So guys, let's have a look at the explanations. Well, more or less what I explained, but since I made a slide, guys, have a look at it. It was hard work after all. So, all right, risk management plan contains how the risk would be identified, categorized, prioritized, budgeted, and within what kind of overall time frame this would be done. The other options are done in risk management, but in different processes than the one which is risk management plan, right? So which are the question, something which the question is talking about, all right? So that takes care of question number 3. Now we move on to question number 4. This should be quite fast, guys, right? The create WBS process identifies the deliverables at the dash level in the work breakdown structure, WBS. A, lowest, B, any, C, 10th, D, the highest, right? So, okay, not bad. All of you got it. It is the lowest. You see, the lowest level of a WBS is actually called the work package, and we feel, in fact, to be very honest, this question is not 100% correct, but it's been picked up from PMP. So it's not 100% correct because the whole of WBS is deliverables. There are no activities in deliverables. So those guys who didn't get trained by me would not even understand what I just said, but make a note of it, guys, that in WBS, there are no activities. You use the WBS in define activities to find all possible activities. But most of the books, they talk about that WBS is nothing but breaking down activities, right? So what I'm saying here is the WBS is filled with deliverables. You have a high level deliverables and low level deliverables, but because the question says that the create WBS process identifies the deliverables, which is everywhere across the whole WBS, but you just have to take it for granted that these guys are basically talking about work package. So you'll get these kind of, imperfect kind of questions at times. And I think it didn't fool you because, you kind of all got it right. So look at the explanation. Well, that's exactly what I said, that basically it's at the lowest level of WBS and it's called work package. All right, time for us to move on to question number 5. Okay. Which of the following statements most accurately describes a project scenario, right? Changes in project scope during the initial phase of the project are very expensive. B, the influence of the stakeholders is the same all through the project. C, staffing peaks up during the execution phase of the project. And D, the next phase of the project should never start until the deliverables from the previous phases have been completely reviewed and approved. All right, let's have a look at the answers. Some people have already started answering. Again, I'm getting a lot of different alphabets. All right, so, okay, not bad. Cool, bad. Okay, so we're getting a lot of alphabets, right? All the way from, except A, I've got all the other alphabets. All right, okay, not a problem. All right, but I think, I wouldn't say most of you, but I'd say a large number of you have got the right answer. Basically what they're talking about is that idealistic project life cycle. Which of the following statement most accurately describes a project scenario? In fact, none of them except C. C does not, explain the entire thing completely, but what it does, that it talks one portion of your idealistic life cycle. Right? So let me show that life cycle to you guys so that you can get a picture of what I'm talking about. Well, a typical project life cycle would have less cost and staffing level expended during the earlier stages of the project, would have the maximum numbers during the execution, middle phases of the project, and sharply fall towards the end. Basically, it's the life cycle we are talking about, project life cycle. So we are talking about this. Sorry, my mistake. We are talking about this area. Right here. This is the area that we're talking about. So it did not explain the whole thing, but that was the only statement which fitted into the explanation about a project. So sometimes you get these kind of questions. These are all PMP curated questions. All right, not bad. Most of you got it right. So now you know. Question number 6. While making wait a second, let me get this right. Let me place this on the side. Okay, while making presentations, the difference between a milestone chart and a bar chart is that unlike bar charts, milestone charts, and then you have to fill in the blank. Show activities, start and end dates. B, show dependencies among tasks. C, identify the scheduled start or completion of any of the major deliverables and not all the tasks. And D, supporting details. So let's have a look at the questions, answers. All right. Okay. Not bad. Not bad. So far, so good. We are getting a few other alphabets also, but that's just one or two. Okay. No problem. No problem. Right now, you know, the correct answer is C, but it's not 100% correct answer. Now, this will actually explain to you guys that you have to choose the best among the provided options. Now, because PMP also does, along with basic questions, they also ask for data sufficiency. That can you make a decision based on the imperfect information that you have, right? So it's very nicely done. Actually, I like PMP for this method of questioning. So this is not a perfect answer, because milestone is not an activity. It is an entry. It's not even an activity. It has a 0 duration, but that's not what they talked about, right? So they're actually trying to show the difference, and this is not a perfect explanation of milestone, right? But still, most of you got it, and you have to choose the best among. So milestone does not show A, has nothing to do with B, has nothing to do with D. It is just an entry in the schedule to show during execution, hey, what's the progress of my project, right? That's exactly what a milestone is. Not a perfect answer, but you know, you still got it, right? So as I said, none of the provided options are 100% correct, but this happens in PMP exam. So you have to choose closest or the best among the options provided, all right? Not bad, guys, not bad. Well done. Let's move on to question number 7. You are the project manager of a software company. You need ideas for project and product requirements. Which of the following techniques will you use? A, flow charting, B, idea or mind mapping, C, nominal group technique, and D, brainstorming. Okay, this time I'm getting only one alphabet, which is good, which is healthy, because all of you got it right so far. I'm just going to wait a few more. Oh, not bad. Fantastic. You guys did not get confused, because a lot of people think it is idea or mind mapping. In fact, you know, idea and mind mapping is a kind of brainstorming, but there's a very slight difference. All right. So, okay, finally we got another this thing, and which is idea and mind mapping. I was hoping that one of you get confused. Well, 2 of you did. Don't worry about it. It is brainstorming. So it actually gives me a very good idea to explain to you the basic difference between brainstorming and idea mapping. Now, let me tell you, I'm a big fan of idea and mind mapping. Every single book that I write, even this webinar, when I made it, I actually had a mind map in front of me so that I'm covering all possible angles, right? That's how I work. Now, what's the basic difference between brainstorming and idea mapping, mind mapping, and why that's the answer? Let's look at the question again before we look at the explanation. You are the project manager of a software company. You need ideas for the project and product requirements. You need ideas. You want to generate ideas. So obviously flow charting and nominal group technique, which is basically a voting techniques. NGT is a voting technique. It's like the way you have it in Congress. When I say Congress, I'm talking about the US Congress, like the parliament, which we call in India, right? So there, people, you know, make votes without letting people know that, and for which bill that they voted for. It's called the secret ballot. So that's exactly what it is, which is NGT. So it does not make sense, right, in this situation. There are only 2 techniques. One is brainstorming, and the other is idea mapping. Now, why is it not idea mapping, right? The 2 people who got it wrong will actually have this question, and that's the answer that I really wanted to explain to even those who got it right. Because what if there was a question around mind mapping and you didn't get it? So you should know the difference. Basically, idea generation is brainstorming, but when you have to represent it, remember, one of the categories of tools and techniques is called data representation, right? Like affinity diagram, where you actually show the data. Once you've done a lot of brainstorming, you can show it, paste all the stuff on the wall and show, hey, this is affinity diagram. And that's data representation. One of the data representation is idea mapping or mind mapping. So basically what it means is when the question is talking about generating ideas, we are talking about brainstorming. But if the question shifted and say, hey, you wanted to discuss ideas with people which has already been generated and you want to eliminate or whatever. So if the question talked about presentation of ideas, you would have gone for mind mapping. Yeah, see the difference? So I hope you got this right. And even those who got the right answer, now you know better. Okay, so now you have multiple varieties that you can answer with the same concept. Not bad, guys, not bad. All right, so the ideas mind mapping is all about presenting the ideas, whereas brainstorming is generation of new ideas. And the question talked about generating ideas, right? Cool. So much in a question. All right, question number 8. After brainstorming potential project risk, after brainstorming potential project risks, what is the recommended method for prioritizing the risks and their mitigation plan? So one of them is called a RACI chart, control chart, fishbone diagrams, probability and impact matrix, right? So I think this one is a sitter and we still got a different alphabet. All right, so, okay. All right, so some people changed it, but it is not RACI chart. Right, so in case anybody's worried, RACI chart basically is about RAM. So please remember, if you got a notepad with you guys, just write RACI, which is this one. RACI is nothing but RAM, which is, not random access memory. It's basically responsibility assignment matrix, right? So R stands for responsible, A for accountable, C for consulted, and I for informed. So it's just a RAM with a different alphabet. So it's the same stuff. So it's got nothing, right? So prioritization happens using probability and impact matrix, right? So that's the right answer. And the explanation is right here. And well, yeah. I'm sorry. I kind of butterfingers. I'm kind of pressing the buttons again and again. So though there are multiple ways to prioritize identified risk, guys, please know that probability and impact matrix is not the only way. You have bubble charts, you have urgency assessments, you have propinquity, right? You have detectability, you've got manageability. So there are a lot of other things that you use for prioritization, but the most popular one, and of course, among the options provided, it is probability and impact matrix. So keep that in mind as well, right? So cool, not bad. All right, have a look at this question, right? So question number 9, during a project, earned value analysis is performed, resulting in the following numbers. EV has this number 523,000, PV has 623,000, and AC has 643,000. Which result is correct? And CV says 120,000, SV is plus 100,000, CV is plus 100,000, SV is plus 120,000. CV is minus 100,000, SV is minus 120,000, and CV is 120,000, sorry, minus 120,000, and SV is a minus 100,000. Let's have a look. Not bad. I've got a few alphabets here. All right, not bad. Yeah. Okay. Well, it all depends whether you kind of remember this thing and get the EV and ACs and EVs and PVs at the right place. So if you, instead of EV minus PV, you go the other way, PV minus EV, you'll have a different answer. So make sure that the order of the equation never changes, because that's how you get a negative or a positive. Here's a trick. Whether you do CV or SV, earned value, which is EV, will always be first, right? I mean, that's one way to look at it. For those guys who study with me, they actually know the why it is done like that. So they don't even have to kind of remember, all right? So, all right, I'm getting to see a few more alphabets. So, all right, let me share the answer right now. Let me not do this. It is D. Basically, okay, I think I've got a slide for that. And let me explain it through the slide, all right? So basically, remember the formulas. Cost variance is equal to EV minus AC, and SV is EV minus PV. right? So remember the placement of EV, right? This is very important because some people kind of go the other way and a positive or a negative becomes positive and vice versa. And you are right as far as the calculation is concerned, but as far as the answer is concerned, you get wrong. So be careful of that. And I'll tell you something very interesting about earned value questions in PMI. All possible wrong answers that a person could calculate are always shown as other options. All right. So this is what happens. They do something wrong and they say, hey, the answer is right there. It matches with one of the options. So man, I'm correct. No, you got to be more confident than that. As I said, PMI in their PMP exam questions, when it comes to earned value, they also write the possible mistakes that people would have, right? So be very careful, right? So even if you make a mistake, it would match and you would get a wrong answer. That's what I'm trying to say here. Therefore, if you substitute the values and what it seems is CV, cost variance is EV, which is 523 minus AC, which is 643. Obviously, it shows as 120, but it is a minus. All right. Same thing happens with SV. Again, it's a minus, right? So, I got a few other alphabets and well, that's because you've got the AC and EV swapped in their positioning. That's where things go wrong. All right, now you know. All right, cool. Let's move on to question number 10. Which of the following statements describes best the relationship of quality and grade? A, low grade is always a problem. Low quality may be overcome by good rework and repair process. B, grade is a category or a rank given to entities having different functional requirements, but the same need for quality. C, low quality is always a problem as it bears on the ability of an item to meet the requirements, but low grade is not a problem. And D, both quality and grade can often be improved through intelligent measuring, testing, and examining. All right, so let's have a look at the alphabets that people are writing. And so far, everybody's absolutely correct, which is brilliant, fantastic. So that's the answer. The answer is C, because a low grade is just a requirement, right? Low grade is not a bad thing. It's just different market segment. You have nano car, which is a low grade car, does not mean it's a bad quality. It's just meant for a different market segment. And then you have Jaguar, which is made for a different market segment. And therefore, you really can't compare quality across grades. So for those guys who've got a notepad, please remember, you cannot compare quality across grades. Grades is just a market segment, right? It's just a requirement, but having a low quality, now that's a problem. All right. So that's basically the explanation provided here. Let me get that right. Okay. Quality can never be compared across grades, different grades, products or services. And you have the answer right here. Not bad. Cool. We've started something excellently new. This is the first one that we've started on the planet. It's called PMP Dash. What I'm seeing is that there are a lot of people who are preparing for PMP exam. They're finding it difficult because either they're reading too much material or they're not being guided properly because they kind of got trained by different training institutes. They have been left on their own, or they're just having too much of work on their plate, because I noticed that people who are working from home, they are working harder than what they used to. So, and even if you're going to office, like the travel time is killing, right? So people are not finding the time. They know that the exam is going to change by December, after December. And, but they're just not finding enough time. So what I've done is I've created one course. It is a 16-hour course. It'll be done over the weekend, but of course I'm also going to do the evening sessions to get as many people in and help them. So what does this course do? Well, a PMP Dash, 16 hours wonder, wherein I will go through the entire PMP concept, every concept, but not from explanation point of view, the way I do in real PMP live where I actually relate everything practically. This will be basically completely project PMP exams targeted. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring out all the important tools, tips and tricks, ETOs, concepts, definitions, right, which show up on exams most popularly. So you just go through these 16 hours readiness course, and you can actually give the exam the very next day. Now, I started doing this 2000, PMP training since 2007. 3 courses have changed since then, and I've done this PMP dash many times. And I know that there have been so many cases where people attended this session just one day before their exam and they kind of aced it. So this is a very powerful course. I worked extremely hard to make this. And what I've done at this time, which is different from the other PMP dashes that I used to do earlier, I've actually put together 200 questions in the course of the 16 hours. So not only that you're going to go through these 16 hours, you'll get all the important concepts. Some of the concepts, I'm actually going to present it through the questions themselves. I'm going to bring some of the most tricky questions, some of the most interesting questions, some of the most popular questions that show up on the exam again and again, and all of that in just 16 hours. Right? So whom is it meant for? It is not a PMP training. Guys, remember, it is not going to provide you any certificate like a 35 contact hours or not even 16 contact hours. It is for those people who are not finding time to prepare for the exam. The exam dates are coming and they don't know how to really gear up, right? So the very first session of this is actually going to happen on 3rd of October and 4th. It'll be at 10 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock, of course, with breaks. And this is India time, right? So I'm in India. I am living in India. So this is India time, Saturdays and Sundays, right? Of course, as I go along, I will also introduce 4-hour segments across the week to cover those people who cannot give Saturdays and Sundays for whatever reason. So I'm going to cover as many people, and my attempt is to make sure that as many people clear the exam before December. All right, so this is a very powerful thing that I started doing, and the very first one is on 3rd of October, right? And but you know what I say? Don't give the exam the very next day. At least take 2 or 3 days, because I want you to practice all that I've taught in the 16 hours through the PMP exam simulator access that I'm going to provide. Plus, I'm also going to give you access to PM Ninja audios. It's a very powerful audio, and it only contains notes and notes in audio form. So you can just keep on listening to it even when you're working, and you would be ready. All right, more than ready. So that's what this PMP Dash is all about. All right, now we move on to question number 11, and we've got 10 more questions to go. So guys, if you're requesting a vendor quote for a defined scope, what is the recommended contract type, right? And let's have a look at the answer. All right, so while you guys are answering, somebody asked this question about how about attention span in such virtual session? Ah, okay. Well, to be very honest, I don't know about your attention span for this webinar. So I can see people are really attentive when I do these webinars, right? So now imagine if there was a webinar, if there was a live wire session where I got you to speak, right? So it was an interactive. So all you have to do is try and see if you can get hold of any guy who's attended my session. They'll tell you exactly that why do we call my session as live wire? It's the official trademark for my sessions called live wire. You know, it's just as interactive as in a real classroom. So don't think that this is one of those Udemy courses or one of those boring courses. No, project management is way too important for us. We don't take it lightly. All right. So keep that aside. Don't worry about it. So guys, come back. If you are requesting a vendor quote for a defined scope, what is the recommended contract type, right? And the answer should be, all right, so far I've got one alphabet, which is A, right? And if there is any other one, all right, not bad. I think those who guys who wanted to answer have answered, and it is fixed price. So very well done, guys. So always remember that whenever a fixed price is used, it's only used where the scope is very clear, or the seller actually knows what he's doing, right? He's done this kind of work before. So whenever the scope is crystal clear, you will always go for fixed price. All right. Of course, fixed price has kind of 3 different varieties, but right now we're only talking about the generalization called fixed price. All right. Let's move on to question number 12. Which of the following statements related to validate scope and control quality process is accurate? A, validate scope is concerned with correctness of the work results, while control quality is primarily concerned with acceptance of the work results. Validate scope, B, validate scope is concerned with acceptance of the work results, while control quality is primarily concerned with the correctness of the work results. All right. And then we have C, validate scope is done only after changes are approved by the change control board. And D, both validate scope and control quality processes are always done sequentially. All right, so these are the options that you have. And I can see some of the questions. All right, I can see multiple alphabets here. All right, okay, not bad, not bad. Okay. Okay, at least it's revolving between A and B, A and B, A and B. It's not C and D. All right, so, all right. Drum rolls, please. And it's B. The answer is B, right? Now, basically, what is the minor difference between A and B, right? Let's read it again. Basically, what is the question that's going to ask you? It's asking you, which of the following statements is related to validate scope? There's a process called, validate scope, right? And then it talks about control quality, right? Basically, always remember this concept, right? Before I explain, verification before validation. You need to verify. Now, what do you verify? You verify whether the project or the deliverables are as per specification. That has to be done in control quality. But after that, you actually present it to the customers who are going to say, hey, did you make it the way I wanted you to make as per my requirements? Now, keeping that in mind, that's what happens in validate scope, right? You compare, the customers compare it against requirements, whereas in control quality, we compare the deliverables with the specifications. And control quality is called verification, and validate scope is called, guess what? Validation. Now, keep that in mind when I answer this. Now, if you look at A, validate scope is concerned with correctness of the work results, while control quality is primarily concerned with the acceptance, which is not true, because acceptance actually happens in validate scope. Now, the statement is partly correct and partly incorrect, but the moment they say control quality is primarily concerned with acceptance, no, absolutely not, because accepted deliverables is an output of a process called validate scope, not control quality. The output of the process control quality is verified deliverables. All right, so this thing goes, right? Now let's look at B. Validate scope is concerned with acceptance of the work results. Okay, this line is perfect. While control quality is primarily concerned with the correctness of the work results. So yes, there's a fine line difference, and the difference is that this is not 100% correct. All right, so I hope I've been able to explain to you in a manner that is question number 13. All of the following are interpersonal skills except A, resisting the change, B, building trust, C, resolving conflict, D, active listening. Which of them is the right answer? Okay, I'm seeing a few alphabets. So far, so good. All right, this is not that difficult, right? Okay, so it is resisting to change, right? This is just a resistance. It's not your interpersonal skills, right? It is just a resistance to change. So sometimes you get these kind of simplistic questions, so don't read too much into it, right? So don't like waste half an hour. No, I don't think PMP can give me such a, there is something behind it. There's something more to it. No. Sometimes the questions are just as simple as that. All right, the explanation shows exactly that, okay? All right, let's move on. Question number 14. Which statement describes best the meaning of the term cost baseline? All right, so a cost baseline, a cost baseline is always created by translating time-phase cost information to cost data on activity or work package level. B, a cost baseline is an approved time-phased budget that will be used to measure and monitor cost performance of the project. C, data to draw a cost baseline can be easily generated and updated as necessary from information related to actual project costs. And D, a cost baseline is usually displayed in the form of an inverse S-curve drawn from the beginning of the project until data date. All right, so which of them is the right answer? In fact, some of these options are kind of similar. So let's see. Okay, I've got a couple of alphabets, A and B. That's the alphabets I'm getting so far. All right, okay. Let's give the answer because I'm just assuming others are not. So it is B. So let's have a look at difference between A and B because that's the questions, that's basically the answers that I got. A cost baseline is always created by translating time, phase, cost information into cost data on activity or work package level. B, a cost baseline is an approved time phased budget that will be used to measure. So basically that's what it is, right? It's an approved kind of a time phase stuff, right? That's what we use to compare actuals with. Now, the cost baseline is already created by translating time phase cost information into cost data. Well, that's not entirely true, right? Right? So be very careful. This is a little high sounding, but not entirely correct. Now this is basic, but it's absolutely correct, right? That's what we use a baseline for. Remember, a baseline is a final approved plan just before execution, and it is used for comparing actual work. Now, if you have simplicity of definition, you will never go wrong. Perfect. So that's what I mean that in those 16 hours of PMP Dash, that's the kind of logic I'm going to give. So no matter which kind of questions that show up, you'll be able to answer, right? So that's the whole concept behind it. So the budget is the cost baseline. This would be used during monitoring and control to measure if the actual costs are more than or equal to less than the budget cost baseline. This would allow the project manager to understand the financial health of the project, and therefore that's the answer. All right. All right, question number 15. Activity attributes is an output of which of the following processes? A, create WBS, B, plan schedule management, C, define activities, and D, sequence activities. Let's have a look at the answers. Some of them already come. All right, this time we've got people have stuck with only one alphabet. All right, cool. All right, so if you guys are stuck with one alphabet, I'm just going to assume that you guys are correct. All right, not a problem. All right, so this is called define activities. All right, so this is right because define activities has three major outputs. One of them is called activity list, the other one is called activity attributes, and the third one is called milestone list. So that's the only thing that you need to remember. It's got a few other outputs, but you don't give a damn about it because that's what we are needing to focus on. Activity list, activity attributes, and milestone list. That's what we need to focus. And therefore, one of them is shown here, and that's the answer. Right, so that's basically what I written in the explanation. All right, over to question number 16. The most detailed level of the WBS is called the, and I don't even have to go there. You should be able to answer it immediately. Right, so yeah, all right. So I should not even waste time with this, but sometimes you get kind of easy questions, not a problem. All right, so I'm going to skip this and move on to question number 17. Guys, in the project, the sponsor has provided a budget of $20 million. This is an example of A, constraint, B, assumption, C, kill point, D, risk. Let's have your answers. I'm getting a few alphabets here. Most of them are on the right alphabet. Okay. All right, so I think just one of us got a wrong thing. One of us wrote it as assumption. Well, assumptions, basically, let me explain what an assumption is. And if you got a notepad, please write it down. Assumptions are things that you take for granted for the success of a project, but you can't prove it today. So, well, that's a fact. This is a fact. It's not an assumption. And therefore, whether it's 20 million or $20 doesn't really matter. Whatever that is the budget, it becomes a constraint. So what is a constraint? Constraint is a fact within which you have to plan your project. Constraints are facts. You can even call them limitations, though limitations is not a good word or not a correct word. Constraints are just facts within which you have to plan your projects. You have to take the constraints, all constraints into perspective and plan accordingly. So therefore, if the budget is $20 million, well, that's a constraint. You have to make sure that your project finishes within the $20 million. That's it. So the right answer is that it is a constraint, not an assumption. Assumptions are things. These are not facts. Assumptions are not facts. Assumptions are things that you take for granted for the success of a project, but you can't prove it right now. All right, so that's exactly what I've explained here, right? So budget is another example of a constraint, right? Now, let's move on to question number 18. Which of the following is a hierarchical representation of project risks? A, risk register, B, risk mitigation, C, risk categories, and D, risk breakdown structure. Okay, I'm surprised. I've got a couple of different alphabets. Oh, okay, the person corrected. All right, not bad, not bad. Okay, that was quick, but I think a couple of people have still got a different. So guys, you need to know that some of you think that this is what you're talking about is risk categories, right? But when we represent the categories as a hierarchical chart, then those categories are called the chart is called risk breakdown structure. So you're right, risk categories, this is a tricky question. So risk categories, when represented, are called risk breakdown structure. I think sometime back I told you that risk categories are identified in a process called planned risk management, and the output is risk breakdown structure because that's how they're planted. And I think I told you a similar thing about brainstorming and mind mapping. Brainstorming is more to do with generation, whereas when you present it, it's called mind mapping. So which of the following is a hierarchical representation of a project risk? And therefore one of them is called risk breakdown structure. So sometimes the easiest questions can throw you off balance because it's put in such a manner, right? So they're talking about a hierarchical chart or hierarchical structure, but in risk. So it's not WBS. Of course, WBS is not one of the options. Even if they were given an option here, that would not have been the right answer. And it would be risk breakdown structure, right? So I hope all of you got it. So that's the answer. And that's the explanation right here, right? So cool, right? And now move on to question number 19. Which of the following statements describes best the relationship between project phases and the project lifecycle? A, the project lifecycle includes the time when the project is performed and the expected product lifespan after that. B, in project management, the sequence of project phases and phase gates is often referred to as project lifecycle. C, the project lifecycle is regarded as a sequence of project activities while phases are defined to control overlapping activities. And D, the project lifecycle describes how iterations of project management processes are used when the project schedule is developed, right? So have a look, which of the following statement describes the best relationship between project phases and project lifecycle, right? And let's have a look. So some of the answers are coming in. Okay, I'm getting a few different, yeah, it's all between B and C, B and C, B and C, right? So not a problem, as long as it's not all the alphabets. Okay, I really like one of the persons said it could be A or it could be B. So probably I have to choose, right? Not bad, but you can do that with me, but don't do that in PMP exam, all right? Okay, not bad, right? But I like it, at least you answered, which is good. Like you may be wrong, right? So, which is good, you're making an attempt, right? So fantastic. So one of the persons saying it could be either A, it could be either B. One of the person is saying C. So we've got three alphabets, A, B, and C. So, okay, all right. So the same person actually further does an analysis and actually sticks to B. Okay. And drum rolls, please. And the answer is B. So it was a good decision, right? Well done. So basically, actually, if you look at A, that's where most of the confusions is. Like most of the people actually chose between A and B. Let's look at A. The project lifecycle includes the time when the project is performed and the expected product lifespan after that. No, it does not. See, till the time you do this, right? The project lifecycle includes the time when the project is performed, right? Till here it is a project lifecycle, but after that, it's not called the expected product lifespan. We do that in project management, but that is actually called lifecycle costing. That's a different thing. It's not project lifecycle. That's called lifecycle costing. So some people get confused with that, right? And now the right answer is basically, what is a project lifecycle? If you got a notepad, please write it down. A project cycle is a collection and arrangement of phases of a project. If you just take the phases, you just, kind of put them in a sequence, and that's your project life cycle for your project in your domain, in your, business, right? And that is why Agile is also a life cycle. Iterative is also a life cycle. Waterfall is also a life cycle. Spiral is also a life cycle. And so is hybrid. It is just the arrangement of the different phases in a project, right? That's it. You got it. Cool. Not bad. And that was a good choice. Okay, good. Yeah. Yeah, questions are good. And that's why I wanted to actually spend time with you guys, that this is how we really need to do questions. Now, somebody has raised a hand. I think it is Abdul Karim Sheikh. So guys, there is no way I can actually give you a mic back. So all you have to do is write the answer or the question that you have, or the thing on the Q&A, because this package of Zoom where I have this webinar does not include mic being given. That happens in trainings, right? But doesn't happen here. So Mr. Sheikh, if you could just ask that question on the Q&A, I'll be more than happy to answer. And I think I told somebody that you have to remember to ask me the question. So we are nearing the end. So remember, please type that question again, right? So we are nearing the end. So guys, make sure that I don't walk away without answering that question. It's a brilliant question. Question number 20. Maximum intensity of conflicts occurs over A, priorities, B, personality, C, schedules, and D, cost. All right, so far so good. Not bad, not bad, not bad. Come on, guys, come on, come on, come on, come on. Not bad, not bad. Okay, so we've got quite a few. Oh, there's a P. There's no alphabet called P. I think the person wanted to type something else, right? I got an alphabet which is P for plain or something like that, right? So P for paper. That's what I got. So I think that was a typo kind of a thing. Don't worry about it. So actually, this is a very simple question, very popular question in PMP exam, but a lot of people get this wrong. So let me explain to you. The correct answer is schedule. See, this comes from Gartner. There was a research done by Gartner, and PMI has adopted it. And basically what it says is, oh, thanks a lot. Thanks for reminding the question. I'll make sure that I'll answer it before leaving. Now, Gartner basically actually talked about what are the top reasons why there are conflicts in project environment. And the topmost reasons is schedule. The second to schedule is priorities, and the third one is resources. So the highest number of reasons why there is, and personality is actually the seventh. Personality or individual differences is the seventh biggest reason. So it's not the topmost. So schedule is the number one reason, and it cuts across cultures, it cuts across geographies, everywhere in the world. The number one reason as an average for conflict is schedules. Right? So keep that in mind, guys. I hope you had the notepad. And if you do have the notepad, guys, please note this down, what I'm going to show you. This is $1 million explanation. So write it down. This is how PMI works. The number one reason for disagreements in project world is schedules. Second is priorities. Third is resources. Fourth is technical beliefs. Five is administrative policies and procedures. Sixth is project cost. And the seventh is personalities. So keep this in mind. to be very honest, if you just remember the top three, you are set. Don't have to remember all of that. The top three are more than enough for you to answer PMP based questions on this. You'll get one question. That's it, right? But you need to get it right. All right. So that's the answer. These are the major, most common causes. And, as you go down is the least common, right? So personalities, I won't say least common. It is absolutely forming part of the top 10. Anyway, it's the 7, but personalities is not the biggest reason. People tend to feel that personalities automatically are the biggest reasons, right? So that happens in families, not in projects, right? Okay. All right, so that brings us to the end of these 20 guided questions. And there was a particular question. There was a beautiful question by somebody. All right, so guys, I can see that there are no other questions. All right, so that brings us to the end. And I would really like to thank your presence because you guys gave up your time. So yeah, thanks a lot. Most welcome. That's what I do, guys. So, all right. So keep visiting my website. There are so many other webinars coming up. Just kind of register beforehand, right? And make sure you don't miss it, right? And can I ask you for a favor? Could you see? I don't advertise, because I don't want to make anything more expensive. And the moment you start advertising, you have to make your products expensive so that you can actually, recover. So can I ask you that if you could just kind of share it with people, get more people to join in, because that's going to help me keep more things free, right? So guys, thank you very much. All right. Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. Connect with me anytime, right? That's not a problem. I'm very easily accessible. All right. So guys, best luck with your preparations, and you guys wish me best of luck for getting late for my dinner. All right, guys, take care. It was really nice meeting all of you. I'm stopping to share and I'm ending the session now.